A vague disclaimer is no one's friend. This podcast will look at episodes in relation to Buffy and Angel as a whole, and therefore contains spoilers for the entirety of both series. If you haven't seen all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel the series, go and watch them before you listen to this. Remember, you've been warned.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
That's why there's us, champions. We live as though the world were as it should be, to show it what it can be.
The Earth is definitely doomed.
It's Tuesday, so it must be time to return to the Hellmouth. We're going through the Buffyverse episode by episode and a look back at Joss Whedon's iconic show. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
This is Andie.
And this is David.
So today's episode is episode 11 of season 1, Out of Mind, Out of Sight, or as most people knew it when it first aired, The Invisible Girl. It aired May 19th, 1997. The story was by Joss Whedon, and the teleplay was by Ashley Gable and Thomas A. Swindon, and it was directed by Reza Badjidji, and I'm sorry if I butchered that name.
Yeah.
This is the second to last episode of season 1, and it's kind of an interesting one in that this is the first Cordelia-centric episode, and it's actually one of the few that we have on Buffy. I have a list of all of the Cordelia-centric episodes, and with the exception of Some Assembly Required, where she's essentially just the damsel in distress, and The Wish, where she is the catalyst for the entire plot. Every one she shares with another character. So they kind of never really knew what to do with Cordelia on Buffy, like as a singular character. I don't think they really got their handle on that until they got her over onto Angel.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would have always loved a little more Cordelia in the world, like more of her inner life, what she does, how she does it. We get a few things thrown in throughout episodes that kind of show what her life is kind of like at home, but we don't actually ever get a full picture of her till she moves over to Angel, and sometimes on Angel she feels like a totally different character.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they had to rewrite her as instead of being a foil, she was the main female character on the show. So they softened her up a lot.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think she never quite got past secondary character status here. I mean, not like, she wasn't low on the totem pole, but she was not. She was just outside the main core cast, and I think she never escaped that until she went to Angel and had a chance to rise into the full, main cast situation.
Yeah, I mean, the secondary characters on Buffy tend to not get as much, obviously, as the core Scoobies and Giles do in terms of backstory. I'm trying to think of other episodes that really give you a picture into the secondary characters, and they usually get one. Like Oz has phases, and Tara has family, but other than that, you actually don't get.
Oz actually has basically a trio of episodes that kind of focus around him. It starts with phases, and then it's All Men Are Beasts, or Beauty and the Beast. That is another episode that has like 2 titles on it. It's very confusing. And then Wild at Heart. And then you could also throw in New Moon Rising. But all of those episodes also relate, with the exception of All Men Are Beasts, they all relate to his relationship with Willow.
Beauty and the Beast.
And the same thing happens with... I've heard it as All Men Are Beasts and Beauty and the Beast. That's like this episode, one of those ones that has like 2 titles, and they just always get debated. But yeah, so Oz's character was always connected to Willow's, and I think the same thing happens with Cordelia, where you only see her kind of as Xander's girlfriend, or you see her as a foil to Buffy, because I actually think the episode where you get the most Cordelia characterization is in Homecoming.
Yes.
I would agree. I mean, this one has some really good Cordelia characterization in it. and things I think people forget about Cordelia. She comes off as this sort of ditzy popular girl, right? But we really get a lot of information on, like, she's a great student, right? She stays after class.
She really is. That's actually...
Yeah, she stays after class to ask a teacher for guidance. She's not dumb. Like, I know from my experience in high school, cheerleaders and football players they didn't have to have great GPAs, but they had to have decent GPAs. So she's not as ditzy and as she presents herself. She's actually a very motivated individual, which you can see. She's motivated to go to college. She's motivated to get out of Sunnydale. She's like a very motivated person. And I think that doesn't always come off, or fandom doesn't always sort of acknowledge that about Cordelia until she moves to Angel.
Yeah, but she doesn't really have, those moments always seem isolated.
It kind of goes along with people thinking that Buffy's not as smart as the fandom thinks. The same thing happens with Cordelia, which kind of fits because they're very much kind of in the same mold. They're just going in different directions. But yeah, she does ask Miss Miller, I believe is the teacher's name.
Yes.
He asks her for help with her homework. And later on, we see she gets a great SAT score. She gets into some great colleges. She just can't go because her father is a criminal.
Yeah, I always wondered how her life would have shook out without that, you know what I mean? Obviously, it had to happen because they had already planned on moving Charisma Carpenter to be the co-lead of Angel, so that was sort of a decision of why she's not, in college. But, I think she is a foil for Buffy. She's sort of compare and contrast with, okay, this is who Buffy might have become if it were not for the Slayer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you see Cordelia over on Angel, where when she eventually gets her own demon essence inside of her, she becomes more of a Buffy-like character. So there is very much this interesting parallel between Buffy and Cordelia.
Yeah, I think it feels to me like they never quite there's a little bit of humanization here, where she has the talk about how I could be alone when I'm surrounded with people. But that's sort of undercut by Marcie later repeating that back to her while she's about to torture her. And it does come across as slightly, I don't know, maybe cliched is probably the wrong word. But it's not as humanizing as, say, the real humanizing moment for Cordelia, where we really get her, like, get a feel for her and sympathy for her is in Homecoming.
But when Marcie is parroting back Cordelia's words to her, I thought that Marcie had actually overheard what Cordelia had said.
Oh, I think so too. I think so.
And she heard it.
Right, but it's also Marcie repeating it back to her, even though she overheard it, but she basically rejects that sort of, in some ways, facile treatment of loneliness.
Of course, Marcie's just fucking insane.
Well, that's another thing. So it's hard to tell, but that they include that particular bit in the episode seems to undercut it slightly for me.
Yeah, the little we know about Cordelia, she's can be kind of a monster.
I do have a question about the character of Mitch, who we see both in this episode and in the next episode. And he is portrayed as Cordelia's major boyfriend in season 1. And in season 2, we'll get Devon, and then we'll finally get Xander. But Mitch is it for season 1. And I really get the impression with the way he talks about Cordelia is she likes him a lot more than he likes her. Because he's really fucking gross, where it's just like...
Yeah.
It's not
no.
I
know. I noted, I was like, oh, thank you for pointing out that he's a total dick before beating him almost to death with a bat. It's... Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's not
he's
a very nice guy, and I think, in Cordelia, in this popular group's life, right, and we see it from the Cordettes, and Harmony, who is in this episode.
Yay.
It's all about status, right? It's all about the status. It's all about what looks best, what people, the outside view of who they're dating, what they're wearing, what they're going to do is all about. And I can see why Cordelia finds that a little bit lonely.
Yeah.
Probably because it seems like just a little bit we know about her parents. That's probably the way it is at home, too. So I don't think she has an outlet for actually expressing who she is. I mean, it doesn't excuse it because, ooh, boo-hoo, poor little rich girl.
Yeah.
But it explains it a little bit. I don't think she probably gets the intimacy of having a really close relationship with anyone, probably including her parents.
Well, over on Angel, she legitimately seemed to believe that it goes home, hotel, husband. So she kind of had no compunction about the idea of marrying for money. It was just, somebody else is going to take care of her.
Which seems odd to me because she's a really good student that brags she gets into good colleges. So I'm kind of not understand. I mean, it just seems like I guess she could be going for the old-fashioned MRS degree, but I don't know. She seems like a pretty motivated person.
I think.
Well, I mean, we do have to look at the career she tried to get into after the college didn't work out.
Yeah.
So, not that I'm trying to put down people who go to Hollywood to be actors, but people who go there to be stars. That's
and also
that's a different thing.
I think there may be an element of just sort of how she was raised and what's the word? I'm losing words. The culture she grew up in. I wouldn't be surprised if, for instance, her mother, whether or not she married for money, wound up staying with her father for money. And it's just that's the idea of that's what you do. And then you can do whatever while he's out doing whatever else. Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sure that is the expectation that she'll marry well. And I'm sure it's the expectation that she'll get good grades, too, because that's just part of it. But the thing that strikes me that I guess I've never really thought about, which is odd, because I think about Buffy and Angel all the time, is that we never hear anything about her parents ever again.
Yeah, that had just come to my mind. The only thing we know is that Mr. Chase goes to probably a white-collar prison for tax evasion, but we don't hear anything about her mother. No, I think they actually do say my parents went to jail for tax evasion.
I'll have to check that when,
but...
she never contacts her parents. I don't think she ever... she talks to Aura on the phone, and you don't even hear a thing she says about her parents, which is so odd to me, because even if your parents have done some kind of tax evasion, you would think you would still keep in touch, or they would try to keep in touch with their daughter. On the other side, it's why...
I mean, do they ever find out that Cordelia
I don't know, because I think part of and I'm not going to say it's a retcon, but it's a reimagining of the Cordelia character when she does go over to Angel and I think we've said this before, they hand wave her age away, because obviously Charisma Carpenter is 30. Yeah. And I think they kind of...
Vaguely mid-20s.
Right, they put her in her, so you don't have to worry about her getting carded in a bar or, whatever. But
which makes the Connor thing all the grosser.
Right?
I'm never going to be over
either.
that.
But yeah, you never hear... So it's kind of like they retconned her parents out of existence with a hand wave, and then made... Since Joss is all about found families, that's her family now. So,
right.
Yeah.
I think this is... I think in Buffy... I'm not so sure about Angel, but it's unless parents are directly plot relevant, we simply don't hear about them.
That's true.
Because I was thinking,
for the most
we
part,
hear nothing about Marcie's parents. She's a missing girl, and we've heard nothing. I mean, I assume they're the ones who reported her missing, but we're not told that, and we hear nothing. She's living in this crawl space, and so
I would assume they probably ignore her as much as anyone else, because otherwise I can't see the whole pseudo physical physics mystical thing working out. I think she has to be completely isolated, which is something that I totally have a problem with in this episode. I mean, not the whole pseudoscience of it. I actually think that's really cool, but just the idea that she has absolutely no one who pays attention to her, especially because she's portrayed as being a really a good flute player, and she's in the band. And do you know what? She would have fucking friends, because do you know what? I was a really good flute player in the band, and you know what? You find your tribe.
Right, you do. Yeah,
you're a band geek.
You're in the at least someone would have been like, pass me the sheet music.
Yeah.
Right.
It is a little contrived and forced.
Of course, I mean, like, this entire episode is about alienation, and we even see that with Buffy at the beginning of this episode, when Xander and Willow are making fun of the whole May Queen thing, because they have all of their little in-jokes because they've known each other since they were toddlers, and Buffy has only just come into this now, and she doesn't understand when they're getting all excited and, you know, speaking in, you know, shorthand. But not only that, but they're making fun of something that used to be very important to Buffy.
Yeah, they really do. You know, Buffy, you know, the movie is like half canon. It's like canon adjacent. So, like, we see what she's been like before. And she was really, and the big shift, like, that is a pretty instantaneous shift from where she was to where she is. Because at this point, she's only been out of LA and moved here for, you know, a semester.
You know, just thinking about it, this and Homecoming make a really good kind of double feature, because they're both very Buffy and Cordelia centric, and they both are very focused on this, you know, crowning event of, you know, high schoolness. And I think it's interesting looking at the two different sides of it, where they're both, where in this Buffy is still very excited, you know, she's still kind of longing for the idea of the May Queen, and in that she actually is kind of pursuing the whole homecoming queen role. And of course Cordelia is the same in both of them, but in this she doesn't learn her lesson, and in that one she just kind of, you know, throws her hands up at the whole idea of all of it, because, you know,
I really like Homecoming,
chased,
and I
Homecoming
really
is really good.
And if you do that as a double feature, you can probably really see kind of where, you know, Cordy's development and growth, because there is growth. There is definitely growth.
Yeah.
You know, throughout the series, and who she is here and who she's going to be in Homecoming, which is almost one of the last episodes of. Oh, it's not. I'm sorry. It's the beginning. I was thinking about the prom. You know, to season 3.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, in season 3, they had to cram in every single high school thing that they hadn't
which
quite
leads
yet
me,
done.
like, do these writers even understand high school? Like, the May Queen, they're like sophomores. Is this like a special dance for underclassmen? I don't know.
Yeah, see, I have
know.
no idea what the whole May Queen thing is about.
I don't either. I think they made it up.
Oh no, it's a thing. I mean, I'm certainly familiar with the phrase the May Queen, but I mean, I always thought it was some kind of thing people did in, I don't know, the Midwest. I honestly, I mean, my New York centric prejudices are showing, I suppose, but it's like we didn't have anything even resembling that. And I was wondering, is it a school thing or is it a not school thing?
But it does.
That's why I
Bronze,
was wondering.
So
It's at the Bronze because they didn't want to have to build another set.
Well, yes.
yeah, because I mean,
Everything's at the
also
Bronze.
one of my notes later on is actually the establishing shot
Yes.
for when they show the Bronze is actually just reused from Angel, because it says
I
closed
noticed
for
that,
fumigation on
Yeah.
it.
I mean, they use the Bronze for all kinds of school activities, including, we'll see, is it next season?
Right.
Yeah, the international weird thing. Yeah, which is
the exchange
bronze.
dance.
I think they just rent out. I think Sunnydale High's like, we'll just rent out the bronze.
Yeah.
I think it's just super shocking that the prom does not take place there. I mean, it's less surprising.
Which is weird because our prom never took place on campus. That was always at some fancy schmancy place. So,
right.
Like the Natural History Museum, best prom ever. Just personal note, great prom.
And if you have Buffy at your school, the last thing you want to do is have a dance in the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's gonna burn it down. Yeah, absolutely.
So interesting event. I think this is actually probably a landmark event in this episode, and that's when Buffy thinks that something is wrong, Willow and Xander immediately try to help her doing things.
Finally, they're like, oh, maybe she does know some shit.
Yeah. Oh, I also want to note, Willow is wearing a Scooby-Doo shirt in this episode.
Yes, she is. Yeah, it's great. I've always like, oh, this shirt. Because have they called them the Scoobies yet? They have not called them the Scoobies yet. They have not called them
the Scoobies yet. The Scoobies, they get called that, I think, for the first time in What's My Line?
I think you're right.
One?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not until after Cordelia is part of the group, because it's Xander talking to Cordelia about, if you want to be part of the Scooby Gang.
Yeah, no, they're not the Scoobies yet, but it's like foreshadowing, right? It's like deep, intense foreshadowing.
I think after the shirt was worn, they might have adopted it in the fandom, and then the writers put it in. I can't remember. I don't know exactly how everything went down, but I do know that Buffy was one of the first shows where you did have that interaction between the fans
that was
and the writers.
Huge thing, and I don't think I was already sort of the observer, but I was on the posting board all the time, and that didn't really start becoming
I lurked
popular
on the boards too
until season 2-ish. So I don't know. I mean, it was there and people were posting, but I wasn't there because the only, the computer center at college was where I was going to use a computer. And primarily that was for checking your email and typing a paper. So there wasn't,
Okay.
And we digress.
This is a little... Yeah, well, this is going to be quite the digression, but I need to mention this anyways. I was editing the Pack episode yesterday. And when I got to the end of it, I remembered that somebody had done up a website called Stuff Me, Shoot Me, Mount Me. And so I looked it up online, and I found it, and it's a Giles and Xander.
Yes, that is exactly what that is. There used to be this hub.
It's
really okay. I have to go look that up.
Yeah, it's like it's archived because it was on GeoCities, and of course, like somebody archived GeoCities. Yeah, so it's still up. The pictures are gone, but
there used to be like a giant hub for the fan fiction. It's before like Archive of Our Own or really fan fiction was really
back when it was all web rings.
Yeah, it was a web ring, and there was like the Slayer at fan fiction web ring, and you could go to each individual pairing and see. But Xander Giles, I can't. I'm sorry, no TP. I can't get behind that. I can't get behind that.
No. I think I had some friends that shipped it. That's why I knew about it.
Yeah, for sure. So. Great digression. And as we get further along in these episodes and sort of where our journeys of Buffy were, I think probably Emcee and I will end up talking a little bit about sort of the web culture that sprung up around Buffy, how it was like one of the first instances that people were really interacting with writers. And it was one of the only shows I can think of at that point where the writers became rock stars. Like you were like, oh, this is Jane Espenson.
Oh, yeah.
Which still happens. It's like, oh, let's see who wrote this episode. The writers really became sort of these rock stars, which I think they sort of still are. I look at TV shows and say, oh, who wrote that? Okay, well, that makes it's going to be a good episode. It wasn't just as creator driven. So, So, a digression, but into the history of Buffy fandom.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was around this time that I really started to look on the internet for Buffy stuff, and it was at this time that stuff started to pop up on the internet about Buffy, like, because for the first half of the season, it would be like, oh, this show is kind of, interesting. But then I think it was around the time of I, Robot You, Jane, you finally started to get people I mean, maybe it was because that was the episode after Angel.
Right,
so
that makes sense.
people were really kind of getting attached to it. But yeah, so I was really starting to get into the fandom at this point. But just back onto this episode, since we love bashing on Xander Harris, why the fuck does every single, in any media, whenever there is an instance of an invisible person, there will be some jackass high school boy who's just like, I have to, do something with the girls' locker room.
It's a trope.
It's a trope.
It's
a bad trope, but
bad
it's
trope.
a trope. And they said, oh, well, that's...
We're just going to lean right into it.
It's the obvious thing. And Xander, poor Xander. I do want to give him one bit of credit for this episode. The joke about the vampire bat is actually not a bad joke.
Oh my god, that's in my notes. Yeah. I was like, that is...
Yeah, I have that too. It's such a dad joke.
Bad joke,
but
though.
it's good.
It really, it's like...
No, not bad joke. Dad joke.
Yes.
Yes, it is very dad joke. And I actually really appreciate a good dad joke. Like, absolutely. They're one of my favorite forms of ridiculousness. And Xander, just the delivery was great. And sort of his reaction to like, ha ha ha.
Well, that's
Look
the
at me.
thing about bad jokes is the best kind of bad joke is when you're like, you come up with this joke and it's like afterwards you go, oh my God, that's so obvious. But no one thought of it.
Nobody thought of it.
And
yeah,
it's
no,
like,
Mm-hmm. And big props to both Willow and Xander for their quick on their feet thinking to get Snyder distracted so that Buffy can see again.
Yeah, for sure.
And Snyder, bringing the Snyder with, there are no dead students here this week.
He always brings the Snyder.
There are no dead students here this week is just perfect this Snyder.
Week, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, Armin Shimmerman is I adore him.
Yes.
And Principal Snyder is, I don't know, maybe he's like my favorite minor character. That, not non-Scooby. My favorite non-Scooby or Scooby adjacent character. He's really just up there.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
I think he's wonderful. Him and Clem are sort of my two favorite.
Clem.
Favorite kind of like minor characters that, just sort of show up here and there for different reasons, obviously, because Clem's just a pile of cuteness and Principal Snyder is a Ferengi, so, there's that. So I made a pretty big observation while watching this, and let me know what you all think.
Okay.
Yes.
So we know that Willow and Xander have been friends forever, but where are their other friends?
Yes.
Like, I get that Jesse was their other friend, and we get that information about Xander. And I'm not doubting that Jesse was also friends with Willow, but we have no information about who Willow really is at this point. Like, I'm sure Xander really accepts having a best friend that's a girl, but I can't see him and Jesse always inviting Willow along and having that especially since Jesse's gross, right? And then, we don't have any... Why isn't Willow Marcie, and why isn't the thematic structure of this episode more about how Willow feels about also being ignored? I think it's a really missed opportunity to give us more information. Yeah. Like, we don't see Willow ever having a single other friend that is not... I mean, she's nice to people.
Well, currently, she used to be friends with Amy.
That is true. Good point.
I do think that Willow and Marcie should have hung out, because I heard this one time at band camp. But yeah, no, I mean, Willow, we know she was friends with Amy back when Amy was, she was fat. as Willow pointed out to us.
You've lost so much weight.
And possibly now that Amy has lost all of this weight, that she has started to hang out with a different crowd, and we do find out in season 2 she has gotten into not only magic but into dark magic. So that can be part of the disconnect between Willow and Amy.
Actually, it's kind of weird that when Amy started getting into magic, and maybe, I assume she didn't go right into dark magic, that Willow and Amy didn't have any bonding over that.
Yeah. Well, I think that was
Was it?
before Willow had
Okay.
gotten into magic. Willow doesn't get into magic until Becoming Part 2. And I actually still have issues with the fact that it didn't turn out that Willow was possessed by some Romani.
Yeah.
And that caused all of Willow's powers.
Yes.
But
I
we'll
mean,
get into
I
that
find
later.
it really,
Um,
again, at this point, and we are at episode 11 of the first season, for me,
yeah, that we
for
know
me,
nothing
at
about
this
Willow.
point, watching this again with an analytic eye, I don't know who Willow is at all.
Yeah.
She's a hacker. She's got good grades. She loves Xander.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, and I think probably the first time through and the first, I don't know, 15 times through, because God knows how long, many times I've watched these episodes. But I think my liking of Willow is pretty much all dependent on Allie Hannigan's portrayal.
Yeah. I think a lot of Willow, because I mean, Willow was an incredibly
Really
popular
popular.
character. And I think a lot of it was Allie Hannigan's portrayal of her. And then I think there was, she was kind of a blank slate. I mean, we knew that she was a shy and mousy hacker, which a lot of the people who liked Willow could identify with. Now, I'm not saying that everybody was, like, inserting themselves onto the Willow character. But I mean, I'm saying this as somebody who did that themselves. Looking back at Willow, it's like, yeah, do you know what? I think I was over-identifying and putting my own traits onto Willow, which might be part of the reason why I rebelled so much against Willow eventually, when she did start to develop her own traits, and they were quite contrary to things that I would do, such as, you know, abusing my fucking girlfriend.
Right. I mean, the other thing is that, like, we're being told that Willow is shy and mousy. It's one of those, you know, show don't tell writing tips that you always get. We're being told that Willow is mousy and unassuming, but I don't see that, actually, except in the very first episode. After that first episode, she's just like, Cordelia's horrible. Oh, this happened. Like, I don't see the lack of confidence in Willow, except for that we're being told she has no confidence. So
yeah, I think
so. I just
the Willow's characterization is a running problem for this season. I mean, we've talked about this several times now, and I think they just really didn't. I don't know why, but they didn't seem to know how to make her more than just a bit more than a plot device. I mean, she has character, and maybe that's down to Allie Hannigan, but really they don't do much with her. There really isn't. There's no real development at all. I mean, there's iRobot Eugene, where we get some, you know, the episode kind of focuses on her, so we get something there. But overall, it's not. There's no real anything there.
Yeah. Really thinking about the Willow character, I think the first episode where you really kind of get an idea of Willow as a person is actually Halloween. Because everybody else is not themselves, so Willow's got to take control of
possible.
things.
Right.
So.
I mean, she shows her bossy boots, because Willow does wear the bossy boots pretty often. She can, which is fine. I'm not, you know, again, I don't want to shame girls for being bossy. That was a whole thing with Beyonce, right? But no, I think that's fine. She is kind of a take charge person, which is the opposite of what we're being told. And I didn't notice this Willow stuff until this watch through, till we really, I guess it probably, my opinion of Willow soured, I think, like a lot of people did, you know, later on in the seasons. And I've come to really like dislike Willow, and I kind of maybe dislike her from the beginning this time. Not because I know what comes after, because she's underwritten. I just never knew there was this big of a flaw in this show I love so much, but there is.
I'm curious if the reason is maybe, I mean, you've got this ensemble cast, and you have to write stuff for everybody. And I'm just wondering if they hadn't quite gotten the hang of that yet for this group. And that Willow, I mean, you've got obviously Buffy and Giles can't really be underwritten. You have to write them, and Xander's the funny one. So,
well, I don't even think I'd say that he's the funny one. I think that he's
that
Joss
too,
Whedon's
but he's also the funny
self-insert,
one.
So
he is really funny.
He gets the bulk of the funny lines. So
Willow
at this point gets to be the one who's like, well, she doesn't have a full character yet, so she's the one who by default is the one who gets shortchanged in the ensemble.
Yeah. Yeah, I think right now she's exposition girl, and the thing is,
and also hacker plot device.
Not as much and there's not as much exposition, and in the first season, it's not until we get into season 2 that becomes more of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, Giles pretty much gives all the exposition at this point because he's the expert in. Hey, here's a book. I'm going to tell you why this is bad in the demon because of book, And Willow hasn't started becoming one with book quite yet.
Yeah. So this episode, for the first time since the harvest, we get to see Harmony again.
Put that. It was my very first note.
Yes.
And it just says Harmony with a giant exclamation point.
It's Harmony.
Yay, Harmony.
And she's getting pushed down.
Yes, that is true. She is getting pushed down the stairs. Yeah, I just always love seeing Harmony. Like, I don't know, it gives me joy now, because my opinion of Harmony now is, of course, colored by, like, where she goes. Everything that happens. I'm like, yay, Mercedes McNabb. Like, I just find her, I really wish she was working more. So I adored her as an actress, and I don't see her in much stuff anymore.
I think she made the mistake of turning 30. Unfortunately, a lot of actresses.
Yeah, except for Bianca Lawson, who's like 52 and is still playing a teenager.
Yeah.
She's not 52, but I would say she's around my age, I'm going to assume. She's in her 40s and she's still playing. I think they got her playing 25-year-olds now instead of 15-year-olds now. Yeah. So what her secret is, I don't know. I think it's black arts.
I actually I'd read an interview with her recently. It was either her or Gabrielle Union, who also played, teenagers for like ever. And I think it's just, good, living.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And they're both absolutely gorgeous women. So,
Yeah, Bianca Lawson's 38.
Close. Yeah, it was close.
So she's like in between you and I.
Yeah.
But yes, so Mercedes McNabb is back, and also, I mean, like, not only am I glad to see Harmony, I love being able to see more of Torrance High School. That's a really nice fucking high school.
It really is. And it, it's been used in everything.
Oh, well, it doesn't get used anymore.
Well, I think they finally said that's enough. I'm done. Forget it. Go away.
Yeah, it was. What happened is after they filmed Graduation Day Part 2, and they had the big explosion in it. Then the city of Torrance was just like, no more filming.
I
mean, what hasn't been used in any other shows since then?
Not since then, no. I mean, maybe they lightened up, but because I mean that was like 20 years ago, but
right, because it was She's All That and. No,
She's All That during
Sarah
Buffy
Michelle Gellar makes a little cameo in that. They did
cameo, and I think it was also
90210, the original 90210.
Yes, I think that was filmed there. Yeah,
and they also did Not Another Teen Movie there because that was obviously a parody of some of those, like She Is All That. But they do. I just looked it up. Most recently, it was used in The Secret Life of the American Teenager, so they must have backed off on that. But it's been the credits had been sort of few and far between.
Yeah, maybe they just forbade Buffy.
Right, probably Buffy. Right, because it's like, okay. Stop blowing up our crap.
So in this episode, Buffy and the gang end up looking up missing and dead kids so that they can compile a list. And Marcie is the most recent one at 6 months ago. Yeah. What?
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could have accepted, like, she was the last unexplained missing kid, but she's not the last dead kid. Come on, there is a gang of vampires that are living below the city that are trying to, take over everything. There's gonna be more dead people. I think that's all, them not thinking things out, because later on they do kind of pepper in more about the disappearances and everything. But yeah, that really stood out to me of just like, oh, somebody was not thinking.
No, yeah, sometimes you're like, again, I've said this before, I don't think they had a show Bible for this. I don't think they had a continuity Bible that, which is, sometimes I kind of love the inconsistencies of the world, and sometimes it drives me crazy, and I'm just like, well, I got no explanation for that. So
I bet you probably around maybe the end of season 2, beginning of season 3, like the writer sat down with like a couple bottles of wine and be like, okay, let's sort this shit out.
I don't think I think it was several bottles of wine because they didn't sort everything out.
No.
But
I think here they're really just flying by the seat of their pants.
They really are. Oh yeah, especially in season 1.
And hey, we see Xander with his skateboard again. And this might be one of the last times that we ever see Xander
he's
with
carrying
his skateboard.
He's carrying it.
He is
so
carrying
like,
it, yeah.
I think they said after having to rig everything for Nikki to ride it, it was like, no, we're never having him ride it again.
Yeah, well, we saw him ride it in the first episode.
So him carrying it around.
And then we see him carry it,
Yeah.
But I think he retires it after this one. And I am not a Willow and Xander shipper, obviously, because I hate Xander. But she has a very cute smile on her face when Xander has the information about the cloaks of the Greek gods. And he's like, reach it, boy, come through with the knowledge.
I think she's proud of him.
And smitten.
Because this is,
yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm not a Willow and Xander shipper at all, and I don't think I ever was.
Yeah.
I don't think that was anything. I didn't become a shipper of anything on this show until Spike shows up.
Seth Green came onto the show?
Spike. When Spike shows up, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's the episode
That
before.
is the episode before. And then I absolutely... I mean, Willow and Oz, but I didn't seek out, like, extra things about them because they were kind of canon. And until season 6 that, the whole Buffy and, I cried when she had to do what she had to do with Angel. Like, I fully bought into it in the moment, which is, I think, what we do when we watch television. I had no, like, oh, my ship that I love is not, I don't care. Like, show me what's on TV, make me feel something in the moment, and if I want to do something else with it, I'll go find it. Like, I don't need to, sort of do the thing. So, but yeah.
This is another episode where we get a little bit of a look at Xander's family dynamic, with Willow wondering if they even own a stove.
I'm pretty sure it was an oven.
Okay.
Close enough.
And I mean, I know, like, a home-cooked meal is not necessarily, like, the sign of a good home life, but, I mean, it is pretty good shorthand for this
neglectful. Yeah. I think...
I mean, especially considering she's known this family since they were kids, and it does not sound like she's really joking.
No, it doesn't sound like she's joking, and I think she probably really tries to... I don't know. I'm sure Xander went over to Willow's and to Jesse's for dinner a lot, is what I kind of... Even though, like, Willow's parents are, like, emotionally neglectful, I'm sure there was always food in the house. And, I suspect they started making Willow make her own food so she could be an independent young woman pretty quick. But I'm pretty sure they had family dinners. I'm sure there was food on the table.
I'm pretty sure the Rosenbergs probably had, like, a chore wheel.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, everybody has to take turns.
And also they're Jewish.
Right.
They would not have not fed her.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, and I'm sure Xander went to Jesse's probably a lot. But he did invite her over, and she said sure. So,
okay. And just while I'm on the Jewish thing, I want to bring this up because this is starting to annoy me.
Oh, yeah.
We've had these things where people say things about Nazis in front of Willow and like all kinds of stuff that like you would not generally say in front of a Jewish person if you were at all thinking. And granted, in this case, it's Cordelia, so clearly she's not thinking. But Cordelia's analysis of Shylock
It's pretty gross.
It's pretty horrible. And you know, if they had left it at Miss Miller going, "That's very interesting, Cordelia, thank you for your input," that would be fine. But then they go to, and maybe she's referring to her general contributions in class, but to have that immediately followed by her saying, you know, Cordelia, you've been really contributing in class. I'm glad to see you're doing the work and you're really contributing. And I'm just like, really? Really? I mean, am I being oversensitive here? Or is that just like really like odd for a teacher to say?
No, I mean, Miss Miller was really fucking weird with Cordelia. Like, I mean, I'm glad she's encouraging Cordelia.
But that was...
But it seemed
and
weird.
Again,
like
Cordelia's sitting literally in front of Willow when she does this. So they keep inserting Willow into these situations where these horrible things are being said.
Yeah, my note was like, also telling a Jew that a Jewish character is a whiner is pretty insensitive. That was my
right. Well, yeah.
note.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to remember. Was that scene part of a flashback, or was that
No,
that
was modern day because then Miss what's her name gets beaten up by Marcie.
No,
the bag over the head.
Yeah.
That is present time.
Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to remember because I mean, like, if it had been a flashback, then I could have maybe like discounted stuff from it as Marcie like the colored lens of. But if it's the real day, then Miss Miller's just a fucking shitty teacher.
I mean,
and Cordelia is a bitch.
And, Cordelia does say some pretty funny things in class because there's that whole thing. Can't remember the episode where she talks about like Marie Antoinette. Yes, yeah. We'll get there when we get there, but like Cordy says some pretty wacky stuff. But yeah, I mean, the teachers at Sunnydale tend to be like, "Okay, Cordelia, ha ha ha," and just move on instead of addressing the what
I think the reason I was particularly put off by this is that at first they have the line where she says, "Thank you for your contribution, Cordelia," so that could be seen as just doing ha Cordelia, brushing her off. But then they follow almost immediately with her like seriously congratulating Cordelia on her contributions. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, Miss Miller is just really bad because, I mean, like, in the later on conversation, I mean, she's not even taught them the difference between protagonist, antagonist, and anti-hero. I mean, that was shit that I learned in fucking 4th grade. And then you have these kids who are just like, can't he be both the protagonist and the antagonist?
That's the one that's in flashback.
And especially with Xander there. I mean, you'd think he'd know about it because he reads fucking comic books all the time. I'm sorry.
No, you're not wrong.
See, you rant about Jewish things.
I will rant about comic book things too if I get the chance. Trust me.
Yeah, I probably will too because I think we do have that in common.
Yes,
is the comic book elements.
Yeah. I would like to know why the fuck Cordelia is being fitted at school.
I don't know.
I mean, I know it's very convenient for the plot, but convenient for the plot's not a fucking
it's
excuse
really not
for the fact that they have set up this whole classroom to be a fitting room for Cordelia, and she's not even been crowned maybe.
Oh, but she will be. Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, sometimes their logic, the writers, Joss, like, guys, do you know, like, I get that this first season you had to minimize your locations. So you've got Buffy's house, you've got that one the library and that one hallway they just reshoot from different angles, and the Bronze, that you don't have a lot of, I mean, they didn't even have their own graveyard at that point. They were still shooting, but
it's at least, it's almost like Doctor Who, where it's like, we've got Dark Corridor and we've got Quarry.
Speaking of Doctor Who, and this is a slight digression, but if any of you guys watched the Doctor Who spin-off, Class.
I have not watched Class yet.
That just debuted on BBC America.
Oh, you mean Buffy?
But they made reference to it. There was this amazing reference.
Yeah, I don't... I don't care if they're making references to it. It's still just
It is Buffy with aliens, but they, I turned to my fiancé Dale and said, oh, so basically it's a Hellmouth. And then, like, not a minute later, the kids in the show are like, yeah, it's kind of like a Hellmouth.
Yeah, no, I'm not.
I only watched the first episode, but they did actually make the reference. Oh, so you mean it's like a Hellmouth as way of sort of explaining it, or like that town in Vampire Diaries or whatever. Yeah. I thought it was funny that there was like a callback to Buffy the Vampire Slayer on this sort of spinoff.
Yeah, no, I think for the Veronica Mars movie reference was the best one. But. Okay, so I would like to talk about Angel and Giles.
Yes.
Oh, me too. Yeah, for sure.
I'm kind of sorry that Giles and Angel didn't meet when he is, like, Angel on his own show, Angel.
Mm-hmm.
Because they would have been, like, besties. I mean, like, there's, the circumstances, like, with Buffy, like, being Angel's, like, forbidden love thing, and Giles being her basically father figure, and then the whole murdered girlfriend thing,
right? There's that.
They weren't really able to get the friendship going, but if like we had like Angel on Angel the series is such a fucking old man. He's an old man and he gets along with older guys and he likes reading and doing all this goofy stuff. And I really feel like he and Giles would have just bonded.
I do too. Yeah, I noted that. I was like, wow, that they get along surprisingly well. They have some nice banter. They kind of, they have stuff in common.
Yeah.
Yes. I can totally see it. And even in the Buffy universe, before he moves to Angel, he's always sitting in that, like, mansion reading, reading something and doing, so, yeah, I can definitely see kind of the lost potential there, too. But
isn't it a shame that Angel had to kill Jenny? On many levels.
Right. There are many shames. Like, Giles, just get over it. I mean, come on. It was just the one girlfriend the one time. Yeah. Like, why can't you be
just
friends?
Put a dead woman in your bed,
Yeah, just that one time there, Emcee. Just that one time. I don't know why he's making such a big deal out of it.
Yeah. But this is a nice scene between Giles and Angel.
No, it's a very nice scene.
It really is.
It's a nice character scene, and it's a nice building up scene to the next episode, because next episode is obviously everything is going to happen, because as far as they knew, it was going to be the end. And they're actually setting it up here, how, they're going to get this prophecy about what happens to Buffy.
Yeah.
And,
I guess my only problem with it is I am surprised at how easily Giles comes to trust Angel that he's really giving him the actual codex. Because Giles simply hasn't spent enough time with Angel to, like, and he's a vampire, so it's like, why would you just, because he just trusts him on this. There's no skepticism, nothing. And it seems a little off.
Oh, I like all the little Phil Coulsons randomly hanging out at the school.
Oh yeah, that's the fucking Initiative. I don't care if they say that they're the FBI. The FBI would not have that. That would be more of a CIA thing,
right?
And it's the fucking Initiative.
Oh, I just really thought it was S.H.I.E.L.D., so like whatever. That's why I said it was a bunch of Phil Coulsons.
S.H.I.E.L.D. is part of the Initiative, or the Initiative is part of S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't it?
Okay, I'll buy it. I mean, totally different universes, but I called them. I was like, oh, look at the little Phil Coulsons. Hey.
Well, there are people who believe that Phil Coulson is the son of Tommy Lee Jones' character from Men in Black. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's a cute crossover. I headcanon accepted.
Okay. Yeah. I wish they'd been a little more subtle with the agents' early appearances, though. Because they really are just like, here, look at them. Particularly in the scene where Cordy's giving her speech in the courtyard. That like Buffy looks over and it's like, oh, close up of the agents. And it's like, ugh. That's,
Yeah. They could have done that a bit more.
Yeah.
So here's the other thing. Like, we're going to get to Prophecy Girl soon in our next episode. Which is going to be a total myth arc kind of episode. But
yes.
I think something I'm really going to miss about season 1 is some of the Monster of the Week structure. And we're going to get some of that in season 2, but they're going to be different kinds of monsters or problems of the week. I really think this first season, I think it was the writers saying, this is our favorite horror trope. Let's write it into an episode.
We don't get the little tags on the end. Like
we don't get the little tags, and then we don't get the same kind of like, oh, let's do, I mean, because they're already doing vampires, it's the name of the show, but it's like, bug women and oh gosh, what robots and like evil robots. Like, they're very much, this first 12, the Monster of the Week episodes are very much about like very common traditional horror stories sort of flipped on their head with some humor. And I think I'm going to miss that quite a bit. Because the monsters and the problems have more variety and they have more symbolism, I think, as we get. And then they sort of disappear at all. I think Gingerbread is the last real Monster of the Week episode in season 3. Like, real, actual monster of the week. Yeah. So, I love the serialized nature of Buffy. It's what kept me coming back over and over. But I don't know. I'll miss the charmingness of some of the parts of the first season. They're kind of, So that was my other thing.
So we have Cordelia coming to Buffy this episode to get her help. And this is the first time that we've had any indication that anybody outside of the Scooby Gang has any idea what Buffy is actually doing, because Cordelia has come up to Buffy and said, I thought you were part of a gang, you could help me. And certainly there's probably a lot of people at the school who have started to realize everything that is going to lead up to the episode The Prom, where she gets the Class Protector Award. So this is the first sign of that. And Cordelia kind of unofficially becomes part of the Scooby Gang.
She does, and even more so next episode, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
But
but she's still a horrible person.
Yeah, but Marcie is way eviler than her.
Sorry. Marcie is evil, but just Cordy's reaction when Buffy tells her, oh, it's an invisible girl. Cordy's immediate reaction is, well, what can we do about it? Get rid of it. She can't even say, get rid of her. It's...
Yeah.
So she totally depersonalizes Marcie yet again.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, good point. I do love Clea Duvall a lot as
Clea Duvall is amazing in so many different things.
I mean, this is not like her best work ever.
This is not. This is actually, I think, one of her very early roles.
I think it is. I've been a huge fan of hers. When I saw But I'm a Cheerleader, which is a classic comedy.
Yeah, that's
I was like, oh, it's Marcie, the Invisible Girl. But then from that on, I'm like, oh, it's Clea Duvall. She's wonderful. Yeah. And she has such nuance in her. I love her in But I'm a Cheerleader, and I also really love her in The Faculty, which I think is a totally underrated horror comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Clea Duvall, it's always really nice to see her. And what she does with Marcie just in those small moments of where we actually see her it's really great. Her big old eyes say a lot of stuff.
Well, I mean, she has a very difficult role because so much of what she has done in this episode is voice acting. With effects from the special effects team.
Yeah.
But she is able to convey this Marcie role very well.
Mm-hmm.
No, she does a very good job. And in fact, when she, during the scene where she's torturing Cordelia, I think she has to do a very lengthy piece, all in voice. And I think she really carries it off well.
Yeah.
When Marcie is torturing Cordelia to the pain, because that's totally what she was doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't say it that way, but I was like, okay, that's
she was
totally To the Pain from Princess Bride.
Yes.
And for someone whose face is supposed to be frozen, Cordelia has an awful lot of expression.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I just looked it up. This was in Clea Duvall's second year of acting. So considering Buffy was filmed the year before it actually aired, this was definitely one of her first roles. So she did a
good on her. Yeah, no, I adore her, and I always welcome seeing her and things. Because I always think she just really brings it, even in the smallest stuff.
Yeah.
Big fan.
Yeah.
She's one of those ones that, because of her odd looks, has had a career past 30. Because she can do, she's not traditionally pretty like a Cordelia.
Well, I feel like she's very much a character actress, kind of more in the way of like a Mark Shepard, where she will turn up in things and it's like, hey, it's that girl.
Right, absolutely. And she doesn't have to fall back on that sort of, we were talking about Mercedes McNabb, sort of that limited sort of, you have to keep up that very blonde tone, the whole BS. And Clea Duvall's gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. I think she's absolutely beautiful, but she's quirky beautiful. So
yeah.
And listeners, if you haven't seen it, I highly, highly, highly recommend. But I'm a cheerleader. It's one of the greatest comedies, and it's one of the first LGBTQ movies to really not take itself seriously in a really good way. It's a great comedy. Absolutely. Yeah. So watch it on my recommendation, because I know good things.
Written and directed by a woman, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, it is written and directed by a woman. It's David, if you haven't seen that one, give it a shot.
All right.
It has RuPaul in Not Drag in it.
Ooh, interesting.
As a man. RuPaul Charles, and not RuPaul the persona.
Yes.
So, a couple of questions I have about this episode. I have had many questions, but, I mean, they're not questions that detract from this episode, because I actually think this is a very strong one. But I want to know, how is Marcie able to lift Cordelia up the ceiling like that?
Yes, I was wondering does the invisibility give her super strength? I'm like, how is that possible? And also, Buffy doesn't even try to check the room for Marcie before leaving Cordelia alone there. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah. And also, I'm kind of curious as to how Angel got the Codex.
They never explain that, do they?
No, it's very much like there should be a comic book or a novel explaining how the fuck Angel got this, because it's another story that just needs to be explained. Did Angel have it this whole time? And it's just oh yeah, I forgot. I took this when I was evil.
Yeah.
Did he kill vampires for it?
Right. It's been in storage. I just didn't go grab it out of my storage place. It's cool. Yeah.
It's one of those books I read when I'm brooding.
Right. It's my broody book. I love it. I brood it. Broody book.
I'm gonna remember that and say that every time he's reading in that damn garden.
It's my broody book.
With his night blooming jasmine.
It's like Shelley or Byron or some crap like that, probably. It's his broody book.
Yeah. I really loved when Buffy and Marcie were fighting with each other. The effects of Buffy listening to Marcie, how everything kind of slowed down and they had the wind and everything. It was very subtle, but they portrayed this hearing of Marcie very well. Because, I mean, that's kind of a tough thing to do.
It works well because they don't overdo it.
Yeah.
That's the thing, exactly. Is the effect is there and you hear it, but it's not in your face. And it doesn't go on for too long.
Yeah, no, I mean, they just basically do it for the one scene, and it's very effective in that scene.
It is. I mean, it also, once again, shows that Buffy's super smart.
And hey, Angel's actually useful, other than just getting the Codex. He actually saves the rest of the Scooby Gang.
Yeah, totally by accident. But
it's the first time he's actually fucking done anything.
Deus Ex Evangelia.
Yay, Angel. Yeah.
I guess he does shit in Angel, but I mean, that doesn't really count because it's his fault to begin with.
It is his, right. I mean, and you know, it goes back to the, I can do this because I don't breathe. They really needed a better explanation for vampires and breathing because it just really gets in the way. Like,
especially when he says that in Prophecy Girl while he's panting.
While he's panting. I mean, they should, that's one of those things I'm like, you know, creators, maybe you should have rethought that because how does Spike smoke? How does, you know,
that is very inconsistent.
Is one of those massive inconsistencies that does absolutely drive me insane in this series.
Am I right in thinking that if Buffy were a little older and had been the Slayer for a little longer, when those men in black came to take Marcie away, she would have said, "You're gonna make her an assassin, aren't you?"
Maybe.
Probably.
I just feel like if like this were maybe like season 4 Buffy.
Oh, season 4
just,
Buffy,
like,
yes. Absolutely.
She would have known like right away like what they were doing.
And they do call this back with the kid in season 7. They call back this episode. She's talking to Robin Wood. And she walks up to the kid and she's like, "No, turn invisible." And
I actually love that little subplot in that episode.
That the kids are all going like super cuckoo pants because the Hellmouth is just like acting up. And it's before like the wholesale like liquidation of Sunnydale. Like everybody just leaves.
Was it Storyteller?
I don't know.
Or was it the episode? I think it was Storyteller because
it's one right in there when they're dealing with the seal being opened. Yeah,
they need to settle the Hellmouth down with Andrew's tears.
Right. So, yes, but they do call it back, and which is what's great about Buffy. They do call things back, and the show has a long memory.
Of course, comic books, if you wanted to do a storyline with Marcie, she's just right there.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I love that.
I mean, not that I read the comics, but Marcie's right there. Like, they've never picked up that storyline.
No, they haven't ever picked up.
In 20 years, Marcie. And it's like, come on, guys.
No, they don't pick up a lot of stuff that happens in season 1 and carry it through. They make a reference to it, like they make a passing reference to this, but they don't. Most of the plot threads of season 1, I wouldn't say get dumped because again, it's a lot of Monster of the Week, and the ones that carry forward is this, you know, things with Angel and things with the Hellmouth and the repercussions of the Hellmouth opening. It doesn't carry over.
Yeah. I mean, like elements carry over, but I think the general, the feeling is, we don't talk about season 1.
Yeah, they were kind
in any detail because.
Well, I don't think I meant like that, which I totally agree with you, David. But I also think the myth arc carries over, but the Monster of the Week stuff doesn't carry over because it's it's nature to not carry over very much. But yeah, so the myth arc continues, the overarching thing, but a lot of this stuff doesn't ever come back.
Okay, another little nitpick I have for this episode. If they didn't want to tell Buffy about Angel saving them, why'd they tell her that they got stuck in the boiler room? Because Buffy had no idea that happened.
I was wondering about that. Why don't they say Angel saved them? I don't...
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get why they didn't say that Angel saved them. It's because they're still, like, all weird about the Buffy and Angel relationship. And Angel was just like, I can't be around her because brood.
Yeah.
So they don't want to, like, tempt Buffy or something. But I just want to know, it's like, why tell her half the story and then force yourself to lie? Why not
that's really... Yeah, you're right. That is pretty dumb.
Yeah.
I have another nitpick that I'm going back to the top of my notes, and it kind of comes off of David's nitpick about the Jewishness and Cordy being, like, terrible in class. And this is also just a pet peeve of mine. She uses the words Twinkie defense.
Yes.
The Twinkie defense. Oh. And, I don't think the writers I think the writers just picked that phrase up.
Yeah.
But I really don't like it when people say things like, oh, it's a Twinkie defense, because the Twinkie defense is what got the man that, like, assassinated Harvey Milk and George Moscone off. So that's where the Twinkie defense comes from, is that Dan White used the fact that he was eating too much sugar as an excuse for why he did some really bad stuff. So, that's always one of my pet peeves. But again, it's Cordelia's insensitivity that she even says it. I'm going to go with that.
I think that phrase was also much more in use at the time.
It really was, yeah.
Yeah. I think people maybe have a little more history behind them now and say, oh, maybe let's not use that one anymore.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
But it's just one of my general cultural pet peeves is the Twinkie defense. It just makes my heart hurt a little bit. So, yeah, bummer. Okay, on that down note, thanks, Andie.
Well, I will just throw in something which I think is happy because I love like little freeze frame bonuses. That at the very end of this episode, when Marcie has gone off to her little invisible assassin school, I'm just going to ignore the fact that for some reason all the invisible kids can, I guess, see each other enough that she can find a place to
Thank you. I was wondering about
I'm like,
that.
how does she know what chair to sit in?
But I really love that the text of the assassination page is the lyrics to Happiness is a Warm Gun by the Beatles.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. No,
I missed that.
I did too.
It has the title line changed to Joy is a Hot Revolver. But yeah, no, it's all of the lyrics, and it's amazing, yeah. And I remember like this being pointed out when the show first aired. People are like, "Hey, it's Happiness is a Warm Gun." They just changed one of the lines in it.
Yeah.
And this is one of the first shows where you got people pointing out these little freeze frame bonuses.
It is
because people were recording it in a way that this is actually. I mean, like I hate to admit about illegal downloads, but Buffy and Angel were probably amongst the first shows that I illegally downloaded on the internet.
Oh my god, I wouldn't even know how to do that. Like, how do you do that?
The ways I did it, I mean, of course, are just very, like, obsolete now, but back, I mean, I don't think I did it back this far. Maybe around season 4 I started doing it. So, like, when Angel first started, I was, like, on, like, using LimeWire and shit like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, no, I remember being desperate to watch Graduation Day Part 2.
I sent out copies of Graduation Day Part 2 to people because they aired it in Canada, but they didn't air it anywhere else. So
if I had known you then, I would have felt much better because, I didn't get to see it till it, we'll get to that history when we get to those episodes.
Yeah, no, I had two VCRs and, I knew people from mailing lists and stuff, so I sent out, I think, like 4 or 5 copies of Graduation Day Part 2.
See, it's the Canada thing. This is when the first season of the new Doctor Who came out. It came out on DVD in Canada in Region 1. And I had to order it from Canada.
Canada! Heck yes!
Blame Canada! Blame Canada!
See, I always go Canada, heck yes, because instead of America, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're polite.
Yeah, so I've heard.
Oh yeah, you're so polite.
I really am. Oh, an important milestone in this episode, for our Giles knockout count.
Yes.
Everybody gets knocked out except Giles.
Oh.
True.
During that gas scene, Willow and Xander get knocked out, but Giles stays conscious.
Okay, it's a close thing, but okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're to final thoughts on Out of Mind, Out of Sight.
It's a solid little episode. I really do enjoy it. I think we had more nitpicking and maybe a couple tangents, but no, it's a really solid episode. It's not one I skip.
Yeah, it's a good standalone. I mean, there's the Codex thing, which I guess is technically an arc issue, but but other than that, it's just a good episode in and of itself.
I would say the Codex isn't so much arc; it's foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So this is very much a standalone. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have one comment about the assassin school.
Yes.
how long has that program been running? Because those textbooks are beaten to hell.
Oh, good question. Well, it had to have been after, what year did the White Album come out?
Right.
Because
that's
that
like,
was
what,
at
67, 68?
67 or 68, yeah.
So, and so you've got a White Album joke in there, so it had to be sometime after 1968.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, if it's part of the initiative, we know that the initiative has been around since World War II, so.
Okay.
Okay, no, it's just because I saw that, wow, it was interesting that they got the prop department to give them really tattered, those books have really tattered covers.
Yeah. So yeah, my opinion, this is a really, really good filler episode. I like this one quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's a good
one of the few looks at Cordelia's character actually on Buffy. I mean, of course, we'll get tons of it on Angel, but they are very different characterizations of Cordelia. Mm-hmm. So definitely one I think that people should watch, and if people are rewatching the show, then they definitely don't skip this one. Give it another watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say at this point, the only one you should absolutely 100% skip is...
I wonder.
I can't imagine which one you're going to pick.
What do you guys say? I don't know. I don't know if I was real clear about it, but I think it's Teacher's Pet. This is still Andie's litmus test of badness of episodes. Is it better than Teacher's Pet? It is better than Teacher's Pet.
We will talk more about Teacher's Pet versus Out of Mind, Out of Sight once we get to our season 1 wrap-up, which we will be doing the week after next, because next week we are reaching the end of season 1, and we will be reviewing Prophecy Girl.
Woohoo!
Yay!
So, until then, grr, arg.
Grr, arg.
Grr, arg.
I'd like to thank everyone who downloaded the podcast, and an extra special thanks to everyone who shared, liked, and subscribed on social media. If you'd like your questions or comments read on the show, you can contact us on our website, returntothehellmouth.com, on YouTube at Return to the Hellmouth, on Tumblr and Facebook at Return to the Hellmouth, on Twitter at HellmouthReturn, or on email at returntothehellmouth@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read your comments on the show. Be sure to rate our shows at iTunes and Stitcher. Also check out Emcee's YouTube channel. See you on Tuesday for Prophecy Girl.
Grr, arg.